Hello, my name is Terezie, and I'm going to do a climate change piano concert in this lovely church in Surbiton. I will be fundraising for the World Land Trust, and I will be playing some pieces of classical music and also talking about climate change. Enjoy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. My name is Terezie, and I'm going to do this concert and talk for you today. Can you hear me all right? I'm not used to speaking with all this kind of recording and amplifying stuff, so can you hear me all right? Not too much echo, yeah? So thank you very much, first of all, for being here, because you're supporting a wonderful cause. You are supporting a charity called the World Land Trust. And I'm going to do some talking and playing as well. So just to prepare you, I'm going to do some serious talking and serious playing with classical pieces in the first part. And I may be telling you things which may be a bit maybe worrying or, I don't want to say negative, but basically, even if you find something upsetting, please stay until the second part, because that's when I will be doing the positive stuff, the constructive stuff. So please try to stay until the very end, if at all possible. So I would like to start with a quote from Sir David Attenborough, who is the patron of this charity and who I'm sure you all know. If you care about the future and about the natural world, you have to care about the preservation, conservation, and protection of the biological communities, whole communities of living organisms, from microorganisms all the way through plants and animals. The World Land Trust recognized this long before others, and as a consequence, this became the first objective. Swiftly followed by second recognition, which became second objective, it was to facilitate local people owning their land and having responsibility for it. Perhaps now it doesn't sound that novel, but then it was. Since its establishment, the success of the World Land Trust was phenomenal. And it still retained its original objectives, which are still firm and focused, and that is why I support the World Land Trust. End of the quote from David Attenborough. If you saw the picture when you were entering this building, he also said something else. He also said the money given to the World Land Trust, in my estimation, is going to have, I forgot how exactly he said it, the biggest impact on the wild world than anything else I can think of. So just really briefly in my words, what they do. They buy patches of land in tropical rainforests or also in some other areas, and they protect it from deforestation, from illegal logging, for clearing, for cattle farming, for anything. They protect it, they create reserves. So it can be forever, it can stay like that. They also would buy patches of land which has been deforested, and they will restore the forests, and they will recreate all those habitats and then will protect the animals. So the first piece I'm going to play for you is a piece by Philip Glass. You may know Philip Glass. I'm kind of starting backwards. I'm starting with the most modern piece first. Philip Glass has been himself very much inspired by nature in a lot of these pieces. This piece is called Einstein on the Beach. If you're not familiar with minimalism in music, it may be a bit surprising. It's very repetitive. It's all based on a simple tune, simple harmony. It's very repetitive, so you may be thinking, oh no, she got stuck. I didn't. That's what it's supposed to sound like. And I'm not even going to play the whole piece, because otherwise you may have got bored of it. So this will be Philip Glass, Einstein on the Beach. Thank you. Thank you for the help with the music. There's some kind of wind, and this may happen again, so please. I appreciate that. Why climate change? Why this is a climate change concert and not just fundraising concert or just concert? So for me personally, climate change is a big and important topic. It was a huge shock to me when in October 2018, the IPCC report came out. It was a report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is basically a United Nations body. So it's not just kind of another study coming out about climate change. What they do, it's an official United Nations body that reviews thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed studies to find out where we are, what is it that we actually know for sure about climate change. And what they said that they know with high confidence was that we have 12 years only to prevent global climate change catastrophe, which was a big surprise to me because before I didn't consider myself being an environmentalist at all. And also I kind of knew about climate change, and I sort of understood that it's important and serious, but I didn't kind of understand how imminent the changes we're expecting are. And I just somehow thought that it's something that's going to affect my great-great-great-grandchildren, and then we'll probably be living on Mars, or we'll be doing who knows what, we'll be half robots, who knows what, but I just thought it's something that it doesn't need to concern me. So IPCC report from in 2018 was something that kind of was a huge shock to me, and since then I've been reading on climate change every day. I'm not joking, every day. Then in Katowice in December, in the climate change conference, David Attenborough, who I'm going to be quoting a lot today here, David Attenborough said, right now we're facing a man-made disaster on of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilization and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. Since then, the effects of climate change have become more and more visible and tangible around the world. We have just had, as World Meteorological Organization confirmed, the warmest decade in history. And in 2019 only, we saw unprecedented fires in the Amazon rainforest, in Central Africa, in Siberia, even in the Arctic, in California, and most recently in Australia. There was a heat wave in Europe with temperatures, record-breaking temperatures in many countries. In France, for the first time in history, they measured 45.9, which is just temperature that I can't myself imagine at all. And also, there have been reports of crop failures in many countries, especially in Africa, but also Lithuania declared state of emergency because of crop failures. We saw Venice underwater, and Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, started moving 10 million of people to a new location because of rising sea levels. And we may be thinking, yeah, things are happening quite far away. But a Welsh village called Fairborn was decommissioned last year because the local council said, well, we can't actually afford to protect this village anymore. It's going to be lost to the sea. I could just go on and on, but it would be horrible, it would be boring, and I promise there will be more positive things. Ladies and gentlemen, this is happening with 1 degree of warming, and the climate projections have been, so far, very accurate, saying that around 2020, there will be 1 degree of warming. You may be thinking that this is not caused by climate change. Maybe, there's been discussions in Australia, maybe it's something else, maybe it's arsonists. David Attenborough, his words, "It is a palpable nonsense to suggest that Australia bushfire crisis has nothing to do with climate change. As I speak, Southeast Australia is on fire. Why? Because the temperatures of the earth are increasing. On the other hand, since that IPCC report, which was in October 2018, things started changing dramatically in terms of awareness about climate change. Last year, the student strikes that also were kind of David Attenborough expressed his support for them. This was the biggest organized protest in human history. I was thinking about it. It's actually not that surprising when you think about suffragettes. They probably didn't have Facebook and things like that. But anyway, it was the biggest organized protest. British Parliament, as well as European Parliament, as well as more than 65% of British local authorities declared climate emergency. And maybe the most recent thing which I personally consider incredibly important, the biggest investment company called BlackRock, they have decided to divest from fossil fuels. They said climate change is now the priority for us. We won't be financing fossil fuels anymore. And so Africa, that's another wonderful example. They're building a wall of trees that can be seen from the space. A massive, they call it Great Green Wall of Africa, to fight climate change and prevent further desertification. So there's a lot of promising signs happening. And when I was thinking what to play at this point, there's a piece which is called Rhapsody by Brahms. Rhapsody means impassioned speech, according to some definitions. So I thought after my speech, which is usually quite passionate anyway, I'm going to do some passionate narrative in music. So Brahms' Rhapsody. bit too passionate and I got a bit lost. But then I found myself pretty quickly. So just going through my cheat sheet. So the next piece that I'm going to play is, if someone asked me, what do you think is the most beautiful piece for piano? I think it's probably this one. It's very close to my heart. It's very mysterious. And I always thought it has something very transcendental about it, like otherworldly, really from different planet. And why I'm going to play it right now. I was wondering, have you ever had that feeling when you were, let's say, in the middle of an emergency, something really unusual happened, or you had a fall, and suddenly things seem completely different, as if you were looking from above and thinking, oh no, is this really happening? Have you ever had that feeling? This piece for me illustrates this, oh, is this really happening feeling. Why now? When I first started reading on climate change, I had exactly this. Is this really possible? I would like to tell you a couple of things that I think that everyone should know. So, is it really that bad with climate change? So we all know, and you will find it everywhere, this is all going to be mainstream science. You'll find it on pages of NASA, on every Academy of Sciences. We all know that climate change is caused by greenhouse gases, so gases that trap heat in the atmosphere. This is mostly by burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas, for energy, for transport, for agriculture, and other things. But there is a couple of problems, and I need to mention these problems to you. Firstly, and I already told you, the world has already warmed by 1 degree. And according to those climate projections, which have been very accurate, we are heading towards 3 to 5 by the end of this century. This is 3 to 5 means catastrophic level of warming. Second problem is, the changes that are happening are not linear, they're accelerating. The reason for that is that there is a lot of things, that there are things that are called positive feedback loops in the climate system. There's nothing positive about them, unfortunately. It's all quite sort of common sense. Melting glaciers. We all know climate change, melting glaciers, rising sea levels. That all make perfect sense. But there is also something, when you go out in a white t-shirt, you don't feel as hot as when you go in a black t-shirt. By melting glaciers, we're losing white matter, white surfaces that are reflecting sunlight, and we're getting more dark surfaces similar to this, that are the oceans. The more dark surfaces and the less glaciers, less white surfaces, the more heating, the higher temperatures. Higher temperatures, more warming, more melting. More melting, this is called albedo effect. More melting, more albedo effect, more higher temperatures, etc., etc. This is why it's called feedback loop. That's just one of them. Another one is permafrost. I was always wondering, why do these scientists, why are they freaking out about permafrost? Permafrost soil, which is permanently frozen, supposed to be, it isn't. Due to climate change, it started melting. Permafrost, even the name suggests permanently frozen. Now we know, and also in David Attenborough's film, Climate Change: The Facts, he explains there are enormous reserves of methane, and methane is many times more powerful heat-trapping gas than CO2, which we usually associate with climate change. So again, higher temperatures, more melting of the permafrost, more melting, more methane, more again, typical feedback loop. And third one, there's about 10 of them. Third one, forest fires. We read about them. We know it's happening. And I'm going to talk about this later. Trees are our biggest allies in climate change because they trap CO2 and they emit oxygen. But by these trees burning, we are losing these allies, and CO2 is, the opposite is happening, and CO2 is being released. So more forest fires, more CO2, more CO2, more warming, more forest fires, etc. This is another feedback loop. There's more of them, but I don't want to get you even more depressed. Another problem is called the climate lag. If you're on the train and you want to stop that train, you put on a brake, it's not going to stop straight away, because train is a really big thing. Imagine how big is the atmosphere. So we know that even if we now stop all the emissions, and that's not what we're doing at all, we have at least 10 to 30 years warming locked in, unless something absolutely miraculous happens and we develop technology or something like that. So this is called the climate lag, again, mainstream science. We know that those emissions, the effects that we see now, are probably from the emissions in the 90s. So that is another thing that, for me, total surprise. Another problem, it's not just climate change. It's also biodiversity loss, the fact that we unleashed 6 mass extinction events. It's also plastic pollution, the causes of which we can see everywhere, in Sainsbury's, everywhere. It's also ocean acidification, overpopulation. So some scientists believe that, for example, biodiversity loss, the fact that we wiped out more than 80% of wild animals, and at the same time, the fact that we are part of this, we depend on this biodiversity, that makes biodiversity loss even more serious than climate change, which is something my brain can't really take. And the last problem is that are some effects of climate change that we don't usually, or I didn't usually think about. So again, it's not just about levels of sea rising, food production. We all eat things that grow, and we eat animals that eat things that grow. So we still need things to grow. And if you put a plant in a room where the temperature is not right, you know what is going to happen, especially if it's quick. And unfortunately, climate change is happening very, very quickly. Migration, another effect of climate change, we're turning certain parts of the world uninhabitable. Very recently, someone from Kiribati was, by United Nations, granted asylum in another country. United Nations said, basically, you can't return this person because their country is going to be under the sea in 10 to 15 years' time. So they do have a real concern. They have very good reasons to claim that their life is at risk. So this is all very concerning and frustrating, but most scientists still believe we can avoid the most catastrophic consequences, or at least slow it down. However, that's not happening with the current commitments. Scientists say that all governments around the world, on average, they would have to increase their commitments 5-fold if we are to avoid the most catastrophic consequences of climate change. David Attenborough, only 2 weeks ago, David Attenborough said, "We know perfectly well that human activity is behind the heating of the planet. This is an urgent problem that has to be solved. And what's more, we know how to do it." That's the paradoxical thing, that we are refusing to take steps that we know have to be taken. This is a very, very recent quote from David Attenborough, about 2 weeks ago. It was on BBC. So my next piece is the transcendental one. It's the one which is about, oh dear, is this really happening? It's a very passionate piece as well. It's Rachmaninov, Prelude, I forgot the key, B minor. That's it. If this little one lets me play, then I'm going to play Rachmaninov for you. Thank you. the Worldland Trust fits into all that. So why it is so important what you're doing here today by supporting the Worldland Trust. I told you, and I'm sure you're all aware of that anyway, that trees absorb CO2, which is helping us to slow down climate change. And tropical rainforest, together with peatlands and other structures, are one of the best carbon sinks, which means that they capture and store the carbon, store the CO2. Unfortunately, we are emitting so much that the trees cannot keep up, and also there are other things, deforestation, logging, clearing land for livestock, also forest fires. So we lose more and more rainforests. By protecting it, actually the way I discovered the Worldland Trust was during the Amazon, the fires in the Amazon, and where I learned that also some of the fires were caused just by people clearing the land for all sorts of different things. And I was just thinking, why don't we just buy all this land and protect it? And I actually Googled buy tropical rainforest to protect it, and this is what came up. And I was amazed to find all that David Attenborough, patron, and all these things. So by buying this land and protecting it, you're doing a great thing, not only for climate change, but as well for the other problem that I mentioned, for biodiversity loss. And just in kind of thinking about it in practical terms, so 1 acre of land in the rainforests, and they have projects all over the world, 1 acre is 100 pounds, so I'm not sure how many of us is here today, let's say, I don't know, 30, is it possible? 30, so that would be 300 or 40, 300 pounds, that means 3 acres, that's almost definitely more than 2 football fields. So by being here, and thank you very much for that, we've managed to, already you can say we managed to buy and protect a bit of land. And another thing which I think is wonderful about the Worldland Trust is the expertise, because there's a lot of now initiatives about tree planting because of climate change and all that stuff. And it is, I think, quite obvious that you can't just plant any trees anywhere, but also these trees need to be climate resilient. It needs to be the right combination. They need to make sure that these trees will survive. And this is exactly the level of expertise that Worldland Trust that they have. And the next thing, it's a bit of an experiment. I mean, all this is actually a bit of an experiment for me. You're all my guinea pigs today, I'm sorry to tell you, I'll be honest with you. And so the next thing, have you ever been to a tropical rainforest? Who has been to a tropical rainforest? Yes, so I'm now going to take you to a tropical rainforest. But it will be 0 emissions, so you don't need to feel guilty about it. So, can you all please close your eyes? Close your eyes. Who can? Yeah, who can? Close your eyes and imagine you are in the middle of a tropical rainforest. The air is hot and quite humid, but also very clean and fresh because it's early morning. There are lush green trees all around you, plants and flowers of weird shapes and colors, and smells that you've never smelled before, colors that you've never seen before. The rainforest is very dense, very exciting, and almost a little bit scary. You hear a lot of interesting sounds that you have no idea to which animals they belong. And suddenly, right above you, you've got 2 little monkeys playing and jumping from one branch to the other, and also some little birds, actually parrots, making funny and really loud noises. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can either leave your eyes closed or open them, up to you. Now I'm going to play these wonderful monkeys and parrots to celebrate all these rainforests and all these habitats that we also here to protect. So the next piece is Haydn, first movement of the Sonata D major. So I think this is the end of the very, very serious part of the concert. And because I promised some popular tunes as well, let me just double check whether there isn't anything else that I wanted to tell you. But I think that's pretty much it. Do you see the monkeys? Did you see, yeah? Or parrots or something, yeah? Yeah. Monkeys are there, yeah, there's loads of monkeys at the back, yeah. Okay, so thank you so much for being here today. As you can probably feel, even from what I'm telling you, it's a very important topic for me, and thank you for supporting the World and Trust. I promised popular tunes, and I just decided that I'm going to do a little tour around the world through different songs from different countries. I don't have any ambitions to connect it with climate change, because if I would be thinking like which countries to pick that are more affected, I don't want to get into that. So basically, it will be songs from all around the world, and also because there is some tea and coffee for you, and cake, including vegan cake. And I've got a lovely picture here from Laura, which is great. Just to show you, I think that's a monkey as well. I think that's probably monkey, yeah. So I think I can see that you all, yeah, number 4, because she's 4. So yeah, there are cakes, please. I will be playing, so this will be more background music. Feel free to either stay or go, but if you stay, then you won't get that cake and it'll be eaten before you get there. So I suggest that you actually go there and have some tea, coffee, and cake. There will be vegan cakes as well while I'm playing, but there's also pieces of paper. I would love to hear your feedback, because this is, as I told you, this is a bit of an experiment for me. I didn't want to give you a feedback form, because I personally find feedback forms very kind of restrictive. You only have these questions and you need to answer exactly those questions. And I was thinking maybe people want to write something completely different, or they want to ask completely different questions. Maybe they don't want to write anything, they want to draw something. Maybe they can do origami, anything. That's your piece of paper that feel free, you can talk to me, of course, as well, with any of your feedback. But if it's something that you would like to record and leave for me, if you think this was absolutely horrible, then you're probably not going to tell me one-to-one. So there is a piece of paper for you. And here I'm going to do a little tour around the world. So feel free to roam and have tea and talk to each other and meet each other. And thank you very much for being here.